You all know that after 21 seasons on CBS, 21 great seasons on CBS, I have to say, I decided to do something different, and that do something different is launching my own network. If you ever wondered what it's like to go from an hour a day, 5 days a week, to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, let me tell you, you don't want to know. It's like rolling backwards down a hill, but I've never had more fun rolling backwards down a hill in my entire life because we're doing an awful lot of very exciting things. And people have asked, why did you do this? Why did you want to make a change? I'm going to get real personal during this podcast and tell you what drove this decision, why I did it, and I'm going to tell you what Merit Street Media is and what it is not. First off, I can't say enough good about CBS. They have been wonderful partners with me and still are today, as a matter of fact, because we're airing a lot of legacy episodes of DrPhil. So many of those episodes have not been viewed by so many of you because you can't watch every day. So check your local listings for DrPhil in daytime, and you'll be able to find it on some new affiliates and on some of the same affiliates, but you'll be able to find it in daytime. I'm still in business with CBS in prime time. So proud of So Help Me Todd. We're in our second season right now, and it is such a great show. And I want to thank everybody that's being supportive of that because it's one of the top comedy dramas. It's really a drama, but with a kind of tongue-in-cheek humor on the side. It's just such a great show, and I'm really proud of it. And we've got some others in the wings that we're getting ready to do in partnership with CBS on the network and on Paramount Plus. So I'm continuing to be partners with CBS. They're a wonderful family. Nothing but good to say about them. So it was certainly no friction with them that caused me to make a change. But I wanted to do something different, something broader than what I was doing. And I've spent 21 years, over 3,500 episodes of DrPhil with CBS as my home network. And I'm so proud of what we did in those 21 years. We wanted to make a difference in the narrative. We wanted to push mental health and mental illness and the ability to talk about that openly to the forefront of people's minds and make it okay to talk about those things in polite society. And I think we've had an impact on that, and I think we are continuing to have an impact just kind of in society on that. And I hope people have learned a lot from what we've talked about, whether it's mental illness or how to be healthy, how to be motivated, how to parent better, how to resolve marital differences, whatever it might be. I think we've made a real difference in that regard. So I'm very proud of the body of work. You know, some shows are better than others, some taught better than others, some probably better left undone. Walked away scratching my head sometimes, thought, what the hell did I get out of that? But all in all, when you've done 3,500 plus shows and you're proud of the body of work, then I think it's been a victory. You know, across time, when you listen to your viewers, things change. The questions that you get sent in change because one of the things we prided ourselves on most was listening to our viewers, talking about what all of you wanted to talk about. Those questions change across time because people change. We spanned generations. We went from one generation to the next. We had moms and dads come on with their teens saying, yeah, I can't talk when I come home from school because DrPhil's on, so I have to go have a snack till DrPhil's off. And then 10 years later, here they are, and they're coming on and saying they have children now. 15 years later, they're coming on saying we have children now, and their children are sitting there rolling their eyes. We can't talk now because DrPhil's on. And we laugh about that, but I'm proud of the fact that we've actually spanned a generation across time. But the questions changed. And you have to think about this. When we started in 2002, people weren't emailing all the time. There weren't any social media platforms. There weren't any smartphones. But then around '08, '09, when that happened, then the world really changed. And it really changed for young people because, in my view, they stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives and comparing themselves to those people living their lives. So we had to change with that. The words cyber and bullying had never been used in the same sentence before because there was no such thing as cyberbullying, but all of a sudden there was. And so now we had kids that would not just get bullied at school, but it would follow them home, or they would change schools and it would follow them to the next school. They couldn't escape it. So I had to adapt, and my staff had to adapt, and we had to start looking at different kinds of psychosocial research. And I was asked to come testify before Congress with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act when they were saying, what do we do about this? Do we need to dedicate funds to deal with cyber bullies? How do we handle this? There were educators there saying, well, oh, this happens off campus, so it's not our problem. It's not our job. Yes, it is. You're with these kids 40% of their waking hours, and these relationships are formed at school. They just continue at home. So you are part of the equation. You do need to make this a part of the curriculum. So we were fighting these battles on the air. We were fighting these battles on the internet. We were fighting these battles on Capitol Hill. I was writing columns about it. I was giving interviews about it. I was testifying about it on Capitol Hill. So we had to start changing what we were doing. And as time went on, and I hit 18, 19, 20 years, we started seeing new challenges arise, social challenges. It wasn't just marriage and family anymore, but things were invading the family boundaries. We were starting to see activists pushing agendas in school. We started seeing kids getting all of their information on TikTok, for God's sakes. There are portions of the population that get 100% of their news on TikTok. Problem with that is it has no vetting. A lot of those people have an agenda. They're selling something. They're not reporting the news. They're not helping teach kids how to think. They're telling them what to think. It's the old parable, teach a man to fish, he'll eat the rest of his life. Give him some fish, he eats tonight. I reverse that. It actually says, give a man some fish, he'll eat tonight. Teach him to fish, he'll eat the rest of his life. And that's the thing about critical thinking. If you teach someone how to reason, how to think, how to really be deductive in their thinking, then they can generalize that to every situation. If you just tell them what to think, even if you're right, even if you're accurate, you need to teach them how to think for themselves. Parents were very concerned about that. We saw with the advent of the smartphone, anxiety, depression, loneliness spiked in '09 and '10 to the highest levels since records had been kept. And parents were saying, my children, they're not themselves. They're really emotionally unstable. They're lethargic. They're depressed. They're lacking in self-esteem and self-confidence. And parents' reaction was to start trying to help smooth the bumps for them. Bad choice. They need to smooth their own bumps. But they were delayed developmentally. They were starting to date later than the generation before. They were starting to get their driver's license later. They were engaged less socially. We have a generation that's lagging behind in almost every aspect. So we started getting those questions. And I started to say that family was under attack. I first said that back in 2004 when I wrote Family First. How little did I know that was just the beginning. And why do I say it's under attack? Because even when you see a family together, they're all on the phone. They're all looking at screens. They're so engaged in all of that. And they don't really want to be. When we ask them why, they give you a 4-letter answer. FOMO. FOMO. Fear of missing out. They don't necessarily want to be on that phone, but they're afraid if they're not, they'll miss what's happening. They're afraid that people might be talking about them and they won't know it. They're afraid they'll miss some cool trend that's going on. They start confusing clicks and likes with real friendships, real relationships. So all of these things begin to change the dynamic of our society around us. And we had to change with it. And we did. You watched. We did. We brought in kids that were getting seduced on the internet. Online predators were lying to them and luring them out their bedroom windows to meet them in the middle of the night, thinking that it was one 14-year-old talking to another. But when that 14-year-old girl got there, they found out it was a 45-year-old pedophile that got them into the car and off they went. And maybe we find them later. Maybe we find their body later. It was terrible. We had to change with that. I had written 9 books. I told Robin, I don't want to write any more books. Too much work. Takes too much time away from family, away from my grandkids, away from things that I was focused on. But I was sitting in the kitchen one night. Robin and I were sitting side by side, and we were having dinner, and we were flipping around on the television, going from one news source to another. And I was getting pretty agitated. I said, I'm so frustrated with the media. You go to one cable news network and they're telling you all of this spin, spin, spin to the right, go to another spin, spin, spin to the left. And my God, why didn't somebody just tell us what happened and let us make up our own mind? Just spin zone, spin zone, spin zone. Don't you get tired of that? Everybody's talking about Trump. Everybody's talking about this, talking about that. Just tell us what happened. I was grousing about that. She didn't even look up from her plate. She just said, you're so frustrated with the media, the fact that they won't get this right. That, you are the media. And she said, as a matter of fact, those last 3 or 4 you've clicked one to the other, back and forth, your ratings are higher than all of them combined. You can have a bigger impact. You can have a bigger influence than all of them combined. So instead of complaining about it, why don't you do something about it? You have more to say. You have greater insight. You have more understanding. You have more of a relationship. Those are channels. You have a personality-driven brand. People know you. They trust you. Why don't you do something about it? That haunted me. I have to tell you, it really haunted me. Because as I looked around, I saw things happening in America that bothered me greatly. I saw this country, in my opinion, headed in directions that bothered me. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, Dr. Phil, are you arrogant enough to think that you and you alone can change the course of this nation? And the answer is no, of course not. I can get pretty cocky sometimes, but I am not arrogant enough to think that I can change the course of this nation. But you know what? I can help. I can have an impact. And whether it is to serve or to lead, I can have an impact. And if you sit around waiting for someone else to do it, and they're all sitting around waiting for someone else to do it, then pretty soon nobody does it, and you lose by default. You lose ground by default. You give up influence by default. And the greatest way to get power away from someone is to convince them they never had any to begin with. You convince them they never had a voice. They never had the ability to make a change. And so they just continue to sit on the sidelines.